Have you ever experienced a miracle? There are two different types of miracles, the natural miracle and the supernatural one. A natural miracle is one that follows the natural order with miraculous results. A supernatural miracle has no explanation and falls outside of what would be considered natural order. An example of a natural miracle might be what happened to my mother over 25 years ago. My dad came home one afternoon to find my mother lying on the bed complaining that her back hurt. Dad knew it was serious because my mother never laid down in the middle of the day. Took her to the local ER to have things checked out. At the hospital that day, by sheer chance, was a young intern getting his hours in. He took one look at my mother, observed her symptoms, and immediately knew that this potentially was a heart attack. He summoned an ambulance to get her to the regional hospital 45 minutes away. By the time my dad got word that she'd been transferred, he was busy packing a bag for her, securing housing for their dog. He rushed to the hospital where he was presented with multiple forms to sign. Mom was to have emergency surgery on a ruptured wall in her aortic arch. Had the intern not recognized her rather unusual symptoms, she would have died. He got her to the surgeon in time to save her life, and she lived another 14 years. A supernatural miracle occurred some 25 years prior to my mom's heart issue. My dad was suffering severe and debilitating headaches. The local medical center determined that he had a brain tumor beyond their medical expertise. Their prognosis was that he would experience physical and/or mental debilitation as a result of the surgery he required, and they sent him off to the Mayo Clinic. Doctors at Mayo evaluated the situation and said they believed they could access the tumor through his ear rather than cutting his head open. This would provide a more successful outcome. He was already deaf in one ear, and if that path to the tumor would prevent what the previous doctors predicted, he was all in. The day of the surgery, they did some final tests, I believe using MRI technology, which was brand new at the time. Doctors then came to advise my parents that the tumor was gone. They didn't understand. What did they mean, gone? The surgeon said it happened sometimes that people were healed without medical intervention. Couldn't explain how or why, just that they could go home. And the headaches ceased that day. Two miracles in my own life, and I'm sure if you think about it, you've experienced many natural miracles and maybe even a few supernatural ones. This week we continue a study of Abraham's life in Parsha Vayera. Vayera means "and he appeared," referring to God appearing in multiple situations to both Abraham and others. It's chock full of miracles of both the natural and supernatural variety. Here's an overview of the miraculous appearance of God in Vayera. Right off the bat, 99-year-old Abraham was sitting at the entrance to his tent, the one that was open on all four sides. It was the third day after his self-circumcision, and he was recovering when he was approached by three strangers. He ordered Sarah to prepare a meal so they could eat. Sarah heard one of the men say that he'd be back in a year when Sarah would have a son. Sarah's laugh was audible through the cloth walls. This miracle was the identity of the three men, angels sent by God on a mission. The men's purpose became clear when two of them announced that they were headed to Sodom, where God had decided to annihilate the town because of their sinfulness. Abraham remained with the third angel and began to bargain with God to save the city for the sake of a few good men. God relented when Abraham asked him to save the city because of 10 good men. However, there weren't 10 good men, and God destroyed Sodom after the angels who arrived there spirited Lot, his wife, and his two daughters out of the city prior to the destruction. Not a miracle of the happy variety that we prefer. However, the destruction of Sodom and Gomorrah was no less a miracle than the plagues of Egypt were. The next miracle occurred a year later when 90-year-old Sarah finally bore a son and named him Isaac, which means laughter. Isaac was a toddler when Ishmael's behavior upset Sarah enough that she put him and his mother Hagar out of the house for good. The miracle occurred when an angel appeared to Hagar in the desert and showed her a well that saved both her and Ishmael from death. Next, Abraham and Sarah journeyed south of Mamre to settle in Kadesh. As they traveled, Sarah was taken captive, this time by King Abimelech of Gerar. Once again, Sarah and Abraham claimed they were siblings to protect Abraham. The king, however, had a dream in which God told him he would die if he even touched Sarah because she was married. The king swore his innocence and God spared him. Miracle number 5. The 6th miracle came at least 30 years later. It's the well-known story of the Akedah, when God told Abraham to take the son that he loved to the top of a mountain and sacrifice him. At the critical moment when Abraham was ready to kill Isaac, an angel appeared and told him not to harm his son. That's 6 miracles in a single parsha. You can believe them or not. I certainly do because of my own personal experience with miracles. As often happens, science is catching up to Scripture. Scientists studying brain activity have found a curious link between belief in miracles and what shows on a brain scan. A recently published book, The Miracles Among Us by Dr. Mark Siegel, explores that connection. An MRI of the brain shows the parts of the brain that light up when people are praying, specifically for miracles. Jordan Graft, a researcher at Northwestern, says that it is the right front part of the brain that involves all belief systems. This lobe is connected to socialization, how you get along and connect with others, as well as your religious beliefs. When you are praying, this part of the brain lights up, and the physical response to that brain activity is a sense of calm that actually helps in recovery. In other words, people who pray for miracles or help and healing when they're sick can actually cause the healing to occur because of the body's natural response that is produced. Of course, the antithesis is also true. When you are angered, perhaps because of politics or the actions of others, the same brain center lights up. The physical reaction, however, is the opposite of what is produced by prayer. Instead of calm, you feel your chest tighten, your blood pressure rise, and your breathing rate increase. The point of Siegel's book asks the question as to why our prayers for others matter. How does my prayer lighting up my brain impact what happens to another person? Recently released hostages from Gaza say they absolutely felt the prayers of others. Nearly all of those held in tunnels for months at a time, even in total isolation, felt the presence of God, His protection and His healing hand upon them when they prayed. The more we learn, the more it becomes apparent that there is a greater power than we. Physicians' hands become God's hands. Technology, science, and religion become more intertwined, and it all comes down to what is referred to as the God particle, that part within us that is connected to our Creator. Never stop looking for miracles in your life. Ask yourself, why were you moved to do what you did, to say what you said, to pray as you prayed, and then look for the difference it made. Your brain is more connected to your beliefs than you may have thought, and there are miracles among us. You are the one who makes them happen.